Well, good morning. Thank you all for being with us again. And today, you joined us on a really exciting Sunday. And actually, you joined us on a really exciting month. And today, we're kicking off a month that I've been excited for some time now. It's a month where we're kind of doing things a little bit different and focusing our attention a little bit in a different direction than we usually do. And our goal for this month is to kind of explore how and see how our spiritual formation can be used for the sake of others. And when that's a concept we've talked about before, but we're going to see tangible ways of how people's spiritual formation has been and is currently being used for the sake of others. And so today we're kicking off this series that we've called Around the Corner or Around the World. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the idea of missions and how our faith can be used and how those around us faith is being used around the corner from us, right here in Holly Springs, and on the other side of the world. Because no matter where we turn, there's a need to share the gospel. There's a need for people to meet Jesus and to grow in their relationship with him. And so at the beginning of the year, as we were we spent some time at the beginning of the year kind of planning out the coming months and so forth, we made this realization that we at Lake Springs, we have missions partners, and we actually dedicate a fair chunk of our budget to missions, both locally and globally. But we haven't done a great job sharing that with you and telling you about what we do and sharing with you where our heart for missions is. And so we're going to spend the whole month, this month, I'm just calling it Missions Month, of hearing from our missions partners, hearing the heart that this church has for missions and how we use our resources and support missions both locally here in the area and also around the world. So I don't typically do this, but I want to start off by giving you an outline of a series of where we're going to be going each week so you can kind of know what's coming up and where we're headed. And so it's up on the screen right now, but we actually secretly, we didn't tell you, but we secretly started this last week. Last week we had a sneaky start to this where if you missed out last week, we had a joint service with Esperanza Church, which is the church that Vasti, who is on keys today, and David, who's usually up here, lead. And they're a partner of ours. They're a missions partner of ours that we support. And as we were planning this, David kind of had this thought of what better way to highlight them than to just be with them, than just to be together and show what a real partnership looks like. And so last week, we got to tear all these chairs out, put tables up here, and to spend the whole day praying together. And that was a perfect picture of what a partnership can look like. It's not just one organization giving to another or receiving from another. It's coming together, it's being in each other's lives, praying together, and caring for one another. And so it was just the most fitting launch, in my mind, to this month. Because not only did we get to see each other, but we got to be in each other's lives. And this partnership has been really cool since I've come to Lake Springs to see unfold. Not only do we have these joint services, which by the way, I will say, if you don't know, having a joint service with an unaffiliated church, a church that you're not affiliated with, is very rare to happen in reality. It's the kind of thing that pastors always want to happen, but then when you start thinking about logistics of, well, who's gonna teach, who's gonna serve where, do we have any difference of beliefs, or we're gonna have to go to one building or another, all these roadblocks come up and it just rarely happens. And so the fact that we can not only do that, and not just do it once, but do it multiple times, and we already have multiple planned for the rest of the year, is just a testament to how well Esperanza Church is being led, and also how well this partnership has been formed. And so that was a really great launch to this series that we got to see a true partnership. And then next week we're going to hear from Central India Christian Mission. They are a missions organization that we support, that we've gone on a missions trip with last year, our first missions trip to India. And one of their missionaries, his name is Abhijit, he's going to be flying in, and he's going to be here with us next week and sharing some stories about what they do and why they do it and the heart behind what they do. And it's the perfect launch for these summer Sundays because we're going to make him stay afterwards and feed him lunch, and you get to pepper him with questions. And so it'll be a good Sunday all around. And then the following week, we're going to hear from an organization called Second Home, which supports local foster and adoptive families right here in the area. And we're going to hear about kind of God's heart for vulnerable children and how you can be involved as well. Then on the following week, we're going to hear from Garrett Simerson, who's a missionary overseas. He is, I believe, our longest standing missions partner, actually. And I got to have a really cool conversation with him this week, and just the things that they do and how their passion behind equipping local people to plant churches in oppressed areas and in areas that Christianity is completely outlawed and very dangerous for them to be in is just amazing. And so we're going to be hearing from him on June 22nd. And then we're going to cap off the month by hearing from Waypoint Church Partners, which is the church network that we belong to. And they're going to come down and they're going to share about why they plant churches, what's the importance of planting churches, and we're going to hear about their mission as well. So it's going to be a really great month, and we're going to take today just to kind of spend some time being clear about our intentions here and framing this month. Because I do want to be clear with the reason we're doing this. The goal of this month is not for you to walk away and say, oh, now I have a better understanding of the church's budget. Now I get where our money's being spent, or even to come away and say, oh, those are some really cool stories we heard. But we want you to actually see the heart behind why we do missions, and the goal is for you to be on mission with these organizations together. Every week we're going to be sharing about ways that you can be involved, whether that's through prayer or whether that's being physically involved. And we would just love for you to spend some time. I get that I kind of have to say this, but there's no week this month that you want to miss, just to be frank. It's every week you're going to want to be here because it's going to look very different, and you're going to be able to see the reason behind the things that we do and the reason behind these missions organizations and what they do. And so the goal today, but also just like any other Sunday and throughout this entire month, is not just to gather information about these organizations, but it's to help us look inward as well at how we are on mission with Jesus and how we are on mission in our own lives and how God is using us to further his kingdom to bring heaven down to earth right here. And so I think as we talk a lot about spiritual formation here at Lake Springs, and I think it's important to kind of frame this whole month with this idea. It's that true spiritual formation has an impact on others. For us to be truly formed in the likeness of Jesus, there's no way that can happen if we don't have an impact on those around us. And so that is something that I want us to be kind of have in mind as we're looking at this month and as we're looking at today. And so today we're going to spend a little bit of time just talking about the why behind missions in general. Why are we even talking about this month, and why do we do the things that we do? And so if you have a Bible, go ahead and open up. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 22 is where we're going to start. But we're also going to be in Matthew chapter 28. So once you find 22, put your finger there, flip to 28, put your finger there, and then flip back, because we're going to start in 22. And if you don't have a Bible with you, there's a blue one under the seats in front of you, and the page number for that blue Bible is up on the screen. But we are going to read two kind of short teachings from Jesus, and they both use the term, or they both have been given the term of great. We're going to look at two different greats that Jesus has taught, and we're going to look at how they work together and what they mean for us today. We're going to be looking at this. We're going to be looking at the Great Commandment. And then we're going to flip over and we're going to look at the Great Commission. And we're going to look at how these two work in tandem for us today and how we, as followers of Jesus, as we are being formed in his likeness, can embody these and live these out in our own lives. So we're going to start in Matthew chapter 22. We're going to be starting in verse 34. And kind of what's happening as we get into this is Jesus has come into Jerusalem. He's ridden in on a donkey. He has come in as a king, but not a king in the way that anyone expected him to come. And he is teaching, and we see the Pharisees are trying to kind of entrap him, either entrap him legally find a reason to arrest him, or entrap him in a way to turn his followers against him. And as this is happening, Jesus is approached by an expert of the law, and he gets asked this question starting in verse 34. It says, hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together, and one of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law? Now, this is actually not a terribly uncommon question to be asked. In fact, teachers of the law would often get together and debate this of what's the most important commandment. Of all the commandments in the Hebrew Bible, or what we call the Old Testament, what's the most important command? And what their goal is actually trying to figure out is what command, if you break it, will garner the most severe punishment. And so he is asked this question that is a pretty common question to be debated, and then Jesus replies in verse 37. So Jesus replies, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commands. So this is a a pretty common verse to read, but oftentimes we kind of look at this concept and we can boil it down to just the idea of we should love God and love people, which is absolutely 100% true. But in framing it that kind of, for lack of a better term, simplistically, we can gloss over what is actually being said about the love God portion. Because it's not just love God in the same way that I love my dogs. It's love God with this all-consuming love. And so let's break it down. Let's see what he's actually saying here. Jesus, as he's saying this, he's quoting from the Shema, which is from Deuteronomy 6, a prayer that the Israelites would pray every day. And he starts by saying, to love the Lord your God with all your heart. To love the Lord your God with all your hearts. What that means is to love the Lord your God with all of your will and affections. Everything, the affections of your heart, everything that you care about, everything that you love should be oriented towards God. Every desire that you have, every affection that you have should be oriented towards God. And then it says to love the Lord your God with all of your soul. Now, this is a little bit different than the way that we might think of soul. We often think of soul as something that is in you, and when you die, it leaves you to go elsewhere. But the biblical writers didn't have the same idea of soul. They thought of soul as just your whole life and your whole physical being. So basically, everything that makes you who you are is encompassed in this idea of your soul. And so we see that he's saying to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, or with all of your will and affections, with all of your soul, with all of your whole life and your physical being, and then with all of your mind. Or in other words, with all of your imagination, with all of your thoughts, with everything that goes on inside of your mind. The things that you think on, the things that you dwell on throughout the day, they should all be looked at through a God-focused lens. And so as we see this list, I think a way to kind of sum this up, or a way to kind of put this all together, is it means that we are to be dedicating every fiber of our being, everything within you, everything that makes you who you are, to loving God. Now, if we're being honest, how many of us are just knocking that out of the park right now? And my hand quickly went down, because I am often not. But the point of the point here is that there's no finish line. There's no, once you get to this certain level of love or this certain level of devotion, then you've made it and you can coast and you're done for your life and you're good. There's no finish line. The goal of the Christian life is to have an ever-increasing desire for God, for it never to end, to always be more and more desired to be closer and closer to God. So we get this almost seemingly impossible command, but then he adds just this pesky phrase on the end, to love your neighbor as yourself, as if the first part wasn't hard enough. Now I need to love everyone in the same way that I love or care for myself. And this is the reason behind why missions exists, if we're being honest. It's because of our love for God, but it's also because of our love for those around us. See, if we think about how we spend our time, how we spend our resources, our thoughts, how we spend our theological efforts, so to speak, are they for the purpose of growing in love for God and growing in love for others? And especially when we think about times that we have conversations with people that we may disagree with. Is my goal in talking to you, if I know going into a conversation we disagree with each other, is my goal, how can I leave this conversation having grown in my love towards you? Or is my goal, how can I leave this conversation winning? And that's a hard thing to keep on the forefront of your mind every time, every step throughout the day. But as we look at what it means to love God in this all-encompassing way and love people as ourselves, the fortunate thing is we don't have to guess about what it looks like. We don't have to sit here and try and figure out what does that even mean or what does that look like, because Jesus gave us a pretty clear picture of what that looks like. However, I think the problem that we often get in, and I often have myself, is we get into trouble when we start to try and define that love for God or love for each other on our own terms. When I try and decide what does it mean to love God for me and love people for me, what does that mean when I'm creating those definitions of love? Because in doing that, that means I also get to decide who's right and who's wrong. I get to decide who's the hypocrite and who's not. And guess what? It's never me. It's never me when I get to define my own terms for love. I'm never the one in the wrong. It's funny how that works. But Jesus gave us a clear picture of what it looks like to love God and to love our neighbor. It means simply to sacrifice. To sacrifice for God, to sacrifice for those around us, because that's what Jesus spent his life doing, is sacrificing for you and for me. Sacrificing life, well-being, comfort, sacrificing everything for God and for our neighbor. It means sacrificing the rights to win in a conversation. It means sacrificing my own comfort to give or for the comfort of someone else. Because the fact of the matter is, as much as we don't want to think about it or admit it at times, Jesus died for the Pharisees as well. And we forget about that sometimes. And I know I often do as well. So we get this picture of what it looks like to follow Jesus, to model what he did in loving God and in loving our neighbor, loving the people around him. But then we get this other teaching from Jesus. If we flip over a couple pages to Matthew 28, this other teaching of Jesus that seems equally important. And so let's jump over to Matthew 28, right at the end of the book, right at the end of the chapter, and at the end of the book, we see Jesus as this is after he has been crucified, after he has risen. He sees his disciples, and this is right before he leaves them and kind of sends them off. And we see this starting in Matthew 28, verse 16. It says, "Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. And when they saw him, they worshipped him. But some doubted. And then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age.'" See, it can be easy, and we sometimes fall into this, to look at these two different teachings and fall in kind of leaning towards one side or the other. We can lean towards the first, the Great Commandment, and we can lean towards that and just really focus on my relationship with Jesus and growing in my love for him and growing in my devotion for him. And even loving those around me, but really focusing on what does it look like for me to grow with Jesus, which is a wonderful thing to spend your efforts and time on. Or we can sometimes go hard the other way, and we can just think about how can I just reach more people? How can we sometimes think about this as churches. How can we be a church that plants churches and reaches people and grows and reaches as many people all over the world with the gospel? But I forget to focus on my own relationship with Jesus. See, neither one is better or worse than the other, but they need to work in tandem with each other. That my relationship with Jesus is just as important with sharing my relationship with Jesus with those around me. See, the reality is that we can't love God, if we love God and love people, the results will be the Great Commission. If we are embodying the Great Commandment, the results will be the Great Commission. Or you can kind of think of it this way, that there's a balance between them. The Great Commandment fuels the Great Commission, and the Great Commission is rooted in the Great Commandment. That they have to work together. One exists with the other. That we don't get to have one without the other. But if I am truly loving God with all of my heart, soul, and mind, and truly loving the people around me, I cannot help but share that love with the people around me. I cannot help but want to tell the person that lives down the street from me what it's like to have a relationship with Jesus. I can't help but want to share that love and that forgiveness that I've received with the people around me that I also love. See, we worship this awe-inspiring, awesome, unbelievable creator of the universe who for some reason wants to have a relationship with me. Ridiculous, right? I don't understand why. But if that's the case, then, man, I want the people around me to experience that as well. I've experienced forgiveness both from the people around me, but also from God in ways that I can look at and say, there is no way that I should have gotten that forgiveness. That just does not make any sense. And man, if I've experienced that, I want you to too. I want you to as well. See, the reality is that if we feel bored or if we feel stagnant in our faith, what we need to do, the way to kind of break through that is just to get in the lives of the people around you. It's just to get in the lives of people around you and see what Jesus is doing in their life. How Jesus is transforming their life and how he is moving with them And I am telling you, that is what can spark a revolution in your own life, is just being in community with other believers and seeing what God is doing through them. And so I think sometimes we can, especially if you've been following Jesus for a long time, it's easy to forget. Unfortunately, sometimes it's easy to forget what true life change can look like. Sometimes it just becomes so comfortable and so natural for us to be involved in this Jesus thing that we forget what it can look like for someone's life to actually be changed by Jesus. And so we are going to hear from someone today who wants to share about how their life was changed by Jesus. I believe the best way to kick off this month as we look at what it's like to reach people for Jesus, what it's like to help people grow in their relationship with Jesus, what it's like to serve those around us, the best way we could kick this off is to hear from a couple that's right here in the church. To hear their story of life change, and for us as a community to be reminded about what life change looks like through a story, not necessarily on the other side of the globe, though we love to hear those stories as well, and we will, and those stories can inspire change and can inspire passion within us, but to hear a story of someone that's right here in the church, that's right here serving next to you most Sundays, that's helping watch your kids, that's a part of this church and a part of the life of this church. And so that's what we're going to do. And so if you would, please turn your attention to the screen.
My name's Jacob Shanahan, and this is my wife, Jennifer Shanahan, and we've been married 4 years.
When it comes to how I was raised, went to church every Sunday. My mom required me to go to church every Sunday, even if I stayed the night with a friend. And of course, I went to college, kind of ventured away for a little while, even though I always talked to God and I always would open my Bible here and there throughout my 20s, but really felt this really strong pull when me and Jacob got together. Really wanting to try to find solid footing with a church and a community, and just felt God tugging at us.
My faith journey, I guess, started as a child. I was brought up Roman Catholic. When I went to college is really when I kind of strayed from attending church regularly, and it's horrible to say, but it almost was like a freedom, because at that point I wasn't being forced to, and I could do what I want. And as we all know, I thought I knew what I wanted, and it was completely wrong. I struggled for a long time in my 20s, just being lost. It wasn't about faith anymore, it was more about just self-gratification. It was do what I wanted to do, have fun. There was an emptiness inside of me because of that, but I didn't recognize it at the time. That came later, really about the same time that I met Jennifer.
And when we started here was the first time I really got really deep with and understanding how to have a deep relationship with God. I felt like the programs and the community here of individuals, everyone, you could just see how much they put God in the center of their life. And it was a great opportunity for me, getting connected in with the women's group at the time, and then also the growth that I've had throughout being a part of the Monday night Bible study with some amazing women, really made a big difference. But I think the biggest thing for me and Jacob was when we were trying to have our daughter join her, and it took about 3 years for us to really, 2.5, 3 years for us to get pregnant, and it really tested us in our faith. And I feel like we both got a lot closer to God and leaned into that, and we had the community of people here that were praying for us and constantly encouraging us that, in God's time it'll all work out. And
within the first year and a half of us attending this church, we went into lockdown because of COVID, and we were attending our life group on Zoom.
Virtually, yeah.
Yeah, which was just a blast. But also that year, not related to COVID, I lost my dad. And easily the hardest thing I've been through in my life at that point, especially being locked down in our house, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. So that's when I really, truly had to lean into my faith and my relationships with those people. That's when you really feel God working in your life. That's when you can really feel the Holy Spirit, because it's so easy just to give in to doubts and sadness and especially anger. And to be able to sit in those feelings is not something I used to be able to do. But with my faith, I was able to do that, and to know that things were going to get better. It doesn't make it easy, but it does make it doable. One of the biggest joys I've ever received was 2 years ago. One of the guys that I knew, he had been through some dark days, and his girlfriend and him decided to get married, and they had a baby almost immediately, and he was still struggling, and we just kept in touch. He's a good friend of mine. We hung out a lot still, and I was just sharing what I was doing, what Jennifer and I were doing at the time, and how our faith journey was going. And about 2 years ago, he called me when we were in Minnesota, actually, and we were driving just down a country road. It's nothing but cornfields, and I'm like, it's kind of weird. He knows I'm in Minnesota. Why is he calling me? And he's like, yeah, man, just want to let you know that me and Destiny, we decided to start going to church this week. And you know what? It was awesome. Like, I literally felt like the preacher was talking to me, and I have rarely felt that much joy in my life. And it wasn't a pat myself on the back like, hey, I helped lead him to God. It was that somebody else had that feeling, and to see that his life transformed since then has been amazing.
A really cool story and that I have is one of my best friends growing up. She would go to church with me here and there. She would go to vacation Bible school, but her family wasn't Christian. She wasn't really exposed to it except for when she was with me. And we had a conversation this last year, and she's accepted God in her life this last year. And it's just been really cool to see how she is just consumed with it now. And it's just so beautiful. And it just reminded me that God is going to meet these people that we are praying for to find God and to see God. He is going to make it happen in His time. And I think it's beautiful because we all have people that we really want to be close to God and to understand just how much God loves them.
For me, one of the biggest things about coming back to faith, one of the biggest hurdles in my 20s, why I was afraid to come back, was just feeling like I wasn't worthy of the love of God. And that's a hard thing to overcome when you're embarrassed about your actions and not really proud. And having a community that tells you continually that it's not about if you're worthy or unworthy, it's that Jesus died for you. Parenthood has shown me that what faith is, because my daughter can do anything and I will always love her.
If you know Jacob and Jennifer, you know what it's like to know someone who is bringing heaven down to earth right here in Holly Springs. They have, which wasn't mentioned in the video, but she has helped lead our Monday night women's Bible study. He leads our Thursday morning, early in the morning before the sun comes up, men's Bible study. And neither of them lead it in a way, and I've been fortunate to be in there with Jacob, and it's not led in the way of, oh, I've made it, now I can teach you how to make it as well. It's just, hey, let's figure out this faith thing together. Let's figure out this Bible thing together. And you know what? It's changed my life, and I think it can change yours too, which is just an amazing thing to see. The cool thing about filming that video is I did not ask them to share anything about other people, to share anything about people that they've seen meet Jesus. But both of them, unprompted, wanted to share stories about people that they have seen come to meet Jesus and grow in their relationship with Him. And that's what spiritual formation looks like. It's not just about what my relationship with Jesus looks like, but it's how is that impacting those around me. And one of the most exciting things is seeing someone that you love and care about come and meet Jesus and start growing with Him. And that is the reason behind everything we're going to be talking about this month. It's all about how we can care for those around us and how we can help those that are close to us and those that are far away from us meet Jesus and grow in Him. And so as we get this month started, even though we kind of started last week, one of the biggest challenges that I've always seen come up when we talk about missions, especially in the weeks that we're going to talk about global missions, is wondering, how can I be involved? What does that look like for me to, how can this not impact me, but what can I do to help? If I might not be in the position where I can uproot my family and move across the globe or go on a missions trip or anything like that, what can I do to help? And the number one thing you can do to help, and I'll be coming back to this every single week, is through prayer. And we pray for these organizations. We pray for people not because it's the only thing we can do, but it's because it's the best thing that we can do. To intercede for those that are in different situations than we are, and go before the Lord asking for his help and his guidance as they navigate what this looks like. And so starting today, and I'll be reminding us of this every week, we are going to form a missions prayer team, where if you want to commit to praying for these organizations as prayer needs come up, I want you to join it. You can scan the QR code that's on the screen, or you can just fill out a Connect card, write your name, your contact info, and just write on there missions prayer team, and I'll get you where you need to go. But what this is going to look like is we sometimes receive prayer requests from these missionaries or from these organizations, and we want to get them to you if you will commit to praying for them as well. Sometimes this can look like we've gotten communication from missionaries saying that, hey, they're in a position where they are hiding underground fearing for their life because people are hunting them. It could be there's a need right down the streets. It could be travel safety. It could be a sickness that someone is dealing with. It could be any number of things. And look, they might come in back to back to back, or we might go a while without hearing from them. But as we hear from them, not just this month, but going forward, I would like for this community to join together in praying for them. This isn't necessarily going to mean, although we may at some points, but that we all gather together and have a night of prayer for them, which we may do and would be wonderful. But this is, as we get these requests, they're just going to be sent to you in real time and just say, hey, stop what you're doing if you can, if it's safe, and pray for this need right now. And so as I've seen some phones go up scanning it, I want to give a disclaimer, though, before you do, that I would love for anyone to join this who wants to. But all I ask is if you commit to doing this, to commit to doing this. To commit to spending time in prayer for these needs that are going to be coming up. Because you know what, when someone's on the other side of the world and they're communicating a prayer need to us, they're communicating it because it's a real need. And I want to be able to tell them that we are really praying for it. And so if that's something that you're comfortable committing to and will commit to, please scan that. And these will be sent out as we receive them. And all we ask you to do is to spend some time with Jesus praying for these people, praying for these organizations as these needs arise. But the fact of the matter is that nothing that we talked about today or nothing we're going to talk about this month is even possible if it were not for the saving grace of Jesus. If it were not for Jesus and what he's done for us, then all of these organizations that are going to be coming in would be frankly wasting their time. But it's all because of the forgiveness and the love that we've experienced through Jesus is the reason behind everything that we're going to be hearing about. And if you have never received that gift before, I'd like to spend a few moments praying for you and praying for us. That we can see Jesus move in our lives, in the lives around us, in the lives of others in Lake Springs, and in the lives of people that are on the other side of the globe that we will never come personally in contact with. I want to pray that Jesus meets you, that meets us in the same way that he met Jacob and Jennifer. That we don't just hear about it here at church, but we open ourselves up to receiving him and allowing him to transform our lives. And that we use that life change, that life transformation for the sake of others.